Along the margins of rivers, lakes, and coastal seas, the movement of water conceals a quiet presence shaped by generations of adaptation to life between land and current. Within these fluid environments, otters move through channels and tidal shallows in search of prey, navigating habitats defined by depth, flow, and seasonal change. Their existence reflects a long history of adjustment to aquatic life, where insulation, perception, and coordinated movement allow survival in environments that demand both agility and resilience. Part 1. Origins. The ancestry of otters extends deep into the evolutionary history of carnivorous mammals, tracing a lineage that began with small, land-dwelling predators that once moved through ancient forests and along the margins of freshwater systems in search of insects, amphibians, and small vertebrates. These early members of the weasel lineage possessed elongated bodies, short limbs, and highly flexible spines, traits that allowed them to navigate dense vegetation, narrow crevices, and complex ground cover. Their success in these environments depended upon agility, tactile awareness, and the ability to pursue prey into confined spaces. Over extended periods of climatic fluctuation and environmental transformation, certain branches of this lineage began to exploit the ecological opportunities offered by rivers, lakes, marshlands, and eventually coastal margins. Aquatic environments presented an abundant and relatively untapped source of prey. Yet accessing these resources required new forms of movement, insulation, and perception. Individuals that could remain submerged for longer intervals or move efficiently through water gained access to prey that terrestrial competitors could not reach. This gradual shift in foraging strategy initiated a sequence of anatomical and behavioral adaptations that would eventually define the otter lineage. As these early proto-otters entered aquatic habitats, natural selection began to favor individuals capable of efficient propulsion through water. Limbs that had once supported a fully terrestrial gait became increasingly adapted for swimming. Digits grew progressively more webbed, enhancing thrust during submerged pursuit, while the musculature of the hind limb strengthened to provide greater propulsion. In freshwater species, tails lengthened and became more muscular, acting as rudders during rapid directional changes within flowing currents. In contrast, the marine lineage that would give rise to sea otters evolved shorter tails but increased buoyancy, allowing individuals to float naturally at the surface between dives. The skeletal structure of modern otters reflects this evolutionary transition. Their bones are unusually dense when compared to those of many other aquatic mammals, a feature that reduces buoyancy and enables controlled descent during repeated dives. This adaptation is particularly important in species that hunt along riverbeds or the ocean floor, where prey may retreat into sediment or among rocks. At the same time, the development of an exceptionally flexible spine permits undulating swimming motions that generate forward momentum, even in confined or vegetation-filled waterways. Changes in dentition accompanied this ecological shift. Early terrestrial ancestors possessed teeth suited to generalized carnivory, but modern otters exhibit variations that correspond to dietary specialization. Species that feed primarily on fish retain sharp cusps for grasping slippery prey, while those that consume mollusks and crustaceans display broader molars capable of crushing hard shells. In marine environments, individuals may supplement anatomical strength with behavioral innovation, using stones placed upon the chest to fracture the protective coverings of shellfish. Sensory systems underwent parallel modification. The emergence of highly sensitive whiskers enabled the detection of minute vibrations produced by the movement of prey through water. This tactile capacity allows hunting to continue even in conditions of low visibility, such as the silt-laden channels of tropical rivers or the dim light beneath dense kelp forests. A protective third eyelid evolved to shield the eye during submersion, maintaining visual function without exposing delicate tissue to suspended debris. Insulation became another defining challenge. Unlike many marine mammals, sea otters do not rely upon layers of fat to retain heat. Instead, their evolutionary trajectory emphasized the development of extremely dense fur capable of trapping air close to the skin. Individual hairs interlock to create an insulating barrier that maintains body temperature during prolonged immersion in cold coastal waters. The maintenance of this barrier requires frequent grooming, as even minor disruptions in the trapped air layer can result in rapid heat loss. The diversification of otters into marine and freshwater forms represents a continuation of this adaptive process. Baby otters are born with fur so dense that they cannot immediately dive, causing them to float at the surface until developmental changes permit submersion. This feature reflects the evolutionary importance of insulation from the earliest stages of life. The capacity to close ears and nostrils during diving further illustrates the physiological adjustments that accompanied the transition to aquatic existence. Over generations, these accumulated modifications shaped a lineage capable of occupying ecological thresholds where land and water converge. From equatorial wetlands to subpolar coasts, the form and behavior of the otter remain influenced by ancestral experimentation with aquatic life, embodying a long history of gradual transformation, guided by the demands of movement, insulation, and sensory awareness in fluid environments. This deep ancestry continues to influence the structure, behavior, and ecological role of modern otters, whose presence reflects a legacy of adaptation to environments defined by currents, sediment, and shifting boundaries between terrestrial and aquatic worlds. Part 2. Habitats. Otters inhabit a wide spectrum of aquatic environments that range from the cold, wave-shaped margins of northern oceans to the warm, sediment-rich rivers of tropical rainforests. These habitats are unified not by climate, but by the constant presence of water and the ecological productivity that water supports. In marine environments, sea otters occupy shallow coastal zones where the seabed remains within diving reach. Rocky substrates, estuarine inlets, and expansive kelp forests define much of this territory. The vertical structure of kelp beds creates a submerged landscape of stems and fronds that extend toward the surface, forming both shelter and anchorage within otherwise dynamic waters. Within these forests, otters often create underwater routes through repeated passage, moving between feeding sites and resting areas. These submerged corridors may be used repeatedly across days or even weeks, allowing individuals to navigate complex environments where drifting plant material, shifting currents, and variations in depth influence accessibility. When resting, individuals may wrap themselves in drifting kelp to prevent separation from preferred territories. The surface of the water becomes a platform upon which feeding, grooming, and social interaction take place. Groups of resting individuals may gather in loose aggregations known as rafts, maintaining proximity through gentle contact while floating. Freshwater habitats differ in both structure and seasonal variability. River otters inhabit flowing systems where current velocity, water depth, and bank composition influence territory selection. Meandering rivers bordered by dense vegetation provide concealment from predators, while submerged logs and rock formations offer ambush points during hunting. Dens are frequently constructed within the banks of these waterways, often featuring underwater entrances that open into dry chambers above the waterline. Such entrances reduce vulnerability to terrestrial predators and allow access even when surface conditions are hazardous. In colder regions, Eurasian otters remain active throughout winter, continuing to forage beneath ice-covered surfaces. Air pockets trapped within fractured ice or beneath overhanging banks serve as temporary breathing stations. Movement between these pockets allows hunting to continue even during prolonged periods of freezing temperature. Snow-covered landscapes may conceal well-worn sliding paths, used repeatedly to travel between resting sites and feeding grounds. Even in environments where the surface appears static, activity continues beneath the ice in a network of channels defined by current and submerged structure. Tropical habitats introduce further complexity. Giant river otters inhabit large river basins where seasonal rainfall dramatically alters the extent of aquatic environments. During periods of flooding, forest floors become submerged, transforming terrestrial landscapes into temporary wetlands. Fish disperse across these newly formed waterways, expanding the foraging range available to hunting groups. As waters recede, prey becomes concentrated within shrinking channels, intensifying competition among aquatic predators. These seasonal cycles influence movement patterns, territorial boundaries, and the timing of reproductive activity. Mangrove systems inhabited by Asian small-clawed otters present a shifting interface between freshwater and marine influence. Tidal cycles alter salinity levels and expose or conceal feeding grounds within muddy substrates. Burrows may be excavated into riverbanks, reinforced by dense root systems, providing stability against erosion and concealment from predators. In agricultural landscapes, rice paddies and irrigation canals may also serve as substitute habitats where natural wetlands have been reduced. Across all of these habitats, water clarity influences sensory reliance. In turbid rivers or silt-laden estuaries, visual detection of prey becomes secondary to tactile perception. Sensitive whiskers detect the minute disturbances created by moving fish or crustaceans, allowing hunting to proceed even in near darkness. In clearer alpine lakes or coastal shallows, vision plays a greater role, though tactile input remains essential. The persistence of otter populations within these diverse systems depends upon the continued availability of prey and the structural integrity of aquatic environments. Pollution, habitat fragmentation, and hydrological alteration can reduce prey abundance or eliminate denning sites. As such, the distribution of otters often reflects the overall health of freshwater and coastal ecosystems. From mountain streams to tidal marshes, from mangrove forests to kelp-dominated coastlines, the habitats occupied by otters form a continuous network of aquatic corridors. Within these corridors, movement, foraging, and social interaction occur in patterns shaped by seasonal change, water flow, and the distribution of shelter along the margins of land and water. Part 3. Prey. The prey species consumed by otters vary widely according to habitat, water chemistry, and the structural complexity of the environments in which they hunt. In coastal marine systems, sea otters feed primarily upon benthic invertebrates that inhabit the ocean floor or attach themselves to submerged rock formations. Among these are sea urchins, crabs, mussels, clams, and abalone. Some individuals are capable of subduing prey with particularly resilient shells, including large mollusks, whose protective coverings would resist the bite force of many predators. In these instances, stones may be used to fracture the shell, allowing access to the soft tissue within. the size of prey available in marine environments can be substantial. Large crabs with hardened exoskeletons and mature shellfish represent some of the most energetically demanding targets, yet their nutritional value offsets the effort required for capture and processing. A sea otter may consume up to 1/4 of its body weight in food each day, reflecting the metabolic demands associated with maintaining body temperature in cold water without the insulating benefit of blubber. The need to sustain such high intake means that feeding activity occurs throughout much of the day, with repeated dives undertaken in succession to locate and retrieve prey from the seabed. Freshwater species display a broader dietary spectrum. River otters consume fish, amphibians, crustaceans, mollusks, and occasionally small reptiles or aquatic birds. In temperate rivers, common prey include slow-moving or bottom-dwelling fish that can be pursued through submerged vegetation or along sediment-rich channels. In some regions, individuals may capture large carp or catfish, prey that requires rapid pursuit and precise handling to subdue. These fish may attempt escape through sudden bursts of speed or by seeking refuge within underwater cavities, requiring sustained agility during pursuit. Giant river otters are capable of hunting some of the largest fish found within their habitats, including armored species with rigid scales and powerful swimming musculature. In tropical waterways, prey may include sizable catfish or characins that inhabit deeper channels. Cooperative hunting within family groups increases the likelihood of capturing such prey, as multiple individuals may pursue or corner a target within confined spaces created by submerged roots or fallen timber. This coordinated movement may force prey toward shallow margins, where capture becomes more feasible. Asian small-clawed otters often target crabs, snails, and small fish that inhabit shallow tidal flats or mangrove channels. Their dexterous forepaws allow them to manipulate prey items directly, probing into crevices or beneath sediment to locate hidden invertebrates. This tactile approach to foraging is particularly effective in turbid environments where visibility is limited. Individuals may use touch alone to distinguish between edible prey and inedible debris buried within the substrate. The largest prey captured by freshwater otters is typically constrained by both body size and the need to transport captured items to the surface or shoreline for consumption. Nevertheless, individuals have been observed subduing fish of considerable length, as well as crustaceans whose defensive appendages present a potential hazard during handling. In certain regions, reptiles may also form part of the diet, though such encounters are less frequent and often involve juveniles or smaller individuals. Across all species, prey selection reflects an interplay between availability, capture risk, and energetic return. Otters must balance the effort required to pursue or process a given target against the caloric value it provides. This dynamic shapes hunting behavior, territorial range, and even social structure, as environments with abundant large prey may support group foraging strategies, while areas with dispersed resources favor solitary hunting. In colder freshwater systems, prey availability may fluctuate with seasonal changes in water temperature and flow rate. Fish may retreat into deeper pools during winter months, while crustaceans become less active in colder conditions. Otters respond to these shifts by expanding their foraging range or altering the timing of hunting activity. Beneath ice-covered rivers, individuals may rely upon stored knowledge of submerged channels to locate areas where prey remains accessible. Marine prey distribution may also vary according to tidal cycles and ocean currents. Shellfish populations may be exposed during periods of low tide, while strong currents can transport drifting invertebrates into sheltered bays. Otters that frequent such environments may adjust their diving patterns in response to these changes, optimizing energy expenditure by focusing on areas of increased prey density. The diversity of prey species available across these habitats allows otters to occupy a wide ecological niche, influencing the abundance and distribution of organisms that inhabit riverbeds, tidal flats, and coastal reefs. Through predation upon species such as sea urchins, they contribute indirectly to the maintenance of kelp forests, preventing overgrazing that could otherwise reduce habitat complexity for numerous marine organisms. In this manner, the feeding ecology of otters reflects both the opportunities and constraints presented by aquatic environments, shaping patterns of movement, social interaction, and habitat use across generations. Part 4. The hunt. The hunting strategies employed by otters reflect the mechanical challenges of pursuing prey in an environment where resistance, buoyancy, and limited visibility shape every movement. Water imposes constraints that differ fundamentally from those encountered on land. Acceleration must be generated against a dense medium, and rapid directional change requires precise coordination between limbs, spine, and tail. The body of the otter is adapted to meet these demands through a combination of flexibility and strength that allows efficient propulsion beneath the surface. Swimming is driven primarily by undulating movements of the spine combined with synchronized strokes of the hind limbs. In freshwater species, the long muscular tail acts as a rudder, stabilizing motion and enabling abrupt turns when pursuing agile fish. The forelimbs remain partially extended during forward movement, contributing to steering rather than propulsion. This distribution of function permits rapid adjustment of trajectory without significant loss of speed, allowing prey to be intercepted even when attempting sudden changes in direction. In marine environments, sea otters rely more heavily on their hind limbs and webbed feet to generate thrust during descent. The unusually dense structure of their bones reduces buoyancy, allowing controlled submergence toward the seabed where invertebrate prey reside. During these dives, the ability to close the ears and nostrils prevents water ingress while maintaining internal pressure equilibrium. Vision remains functional beneath the surface due to the presence of a protective third eyelid that shields the eye from suspended particles. Hunting often occurs in conditions of limited visibility. In turbid rivers or beneath dense kelp canopies, tactile perception becomes essential. Sensitive whiskers detect the minute disturbances created by moving prey, translating vibrational information into spatial awareness. This sensory system allows an otter to locate fish concealed within vegetation or crustaceans buried beneath sediment. Even subtle movements produced by a buried mollusk can be detected through changes in water pressure along the whiskers. Once prey is located, capture typically involves a rapid forward lunge, followed by grasping with the forepaws or jaws. Fish may be subdued through repeated bites that immobilize the body, while crustaceans are often handled with care to avoid injury from defensive appendages. Asian small-clawed otters employ particularly dexterous forepaws to manipulate prey directly, turning shells or probing into crevices to extract hidden invertebrates. This manual handling reduces the risk associated with consuming prey equipped with claws or spines. Marine species frequently transport captured prey to the surface for processing. Floating on the back, an individual may place a stone upon its chest and strike the shellfish repeatedly until the protective covering fractures. Some individuals retain preferred stones within loose folds of skin beneath the forelimbs, carrying these tools between dives for repeated use. The repeated application of force allows access to prey that would otherwise remain inaccessible due to protective armor. Group hunting occurs in certain species, particularly giant river otters, where coordinated pursuit may drive fish toward shallow margins or submerged barriers. By narrowing the available escape routes, multiple individuals increase the probability of successful capture. Such coordinated behavior may involve individuals positioning themselves along likely escape paths before initiating pursuit. The energetic demands associated with repeated diving require efficient recovery at the surface. Between foraging bouts, individuals groom their fur to restore the insulating air layer that prevents heat loss during immersion. This maintenance behavior is integral to continued hunting activity in cold environments, as even small disruptions in the insulating layer can reduce body temperature during prolonged submersion. Dive duration varies according to prey type and depth. River otters are capable of holding their breath for several minutes, allowing extended pursuit within submerged vegetation or beneath ice-covered surfaces. Sea otters, by contrast, may perform repeated shorter dives to retrieve shellfish from the seabed, surfacing frequently to process captured prey. Environmental conditions, such as current velocity and water clarity, further influence hunting efficiency. In fast-flowing streams, prey may be carried downstream, requiring upstream pursuit to intercept. In still waters, concealment within vegetation may reduce prey detection, necessitating close-range exploration of likely hiding places. In this manner, the hunting behavior of otters reflects an integration of anatomical adaptation, sensory perception, and learned technique, enabling the capture of diverse prey across environments defined by current, depth, and structural complexity. Part 5. Family life. The family life of otters is shaped by the demands of aquatic environments, where the raising of young must occur in habitats defined by current, temperature, and the availability of shelter. Reproduction begins with courtship interactions that may involve playful pursuit in the water, vocal communication, and tactile contact. Male and female individuals may remain in close proximity for extended periods before separation occurs following mating. Gestation periods vary among species, but generally extend for several months. In many freshwater otters, birth takes place within dens constructed along riverbanks, where dry chambers provide insulation from water and protection from predators. These dens are often accessed through underwater entrances, reducing the likelihood of detection by terrestrial threats. Within these sheltered spaces, the young are born blind and dependent, requiring constant warmth and nourishment during the earliest stages of development. Marine species exhibit a different strategy. Sea otter mothers give birth in the water and must immediately maintain the position of the pup at the surface. The fur of newborn pups is so dense that it traps large volumes of air, preventing submersion. As a result, the young are unable to dive during the initial weeks of life and must remain afloat while the mother forages nearby. During this period, the pup may rest upon the chest of the adult, supported by forelimbs that maintain stability amid waves and surface movement. Feeding of the young occurs through nursing, with the mother returning frequently from foraging dives to provide nourishment. In freshwater environments, pups may be transported by the mother through the water, held gently by the scruff of the neck. As development progresses, the young begin to explore the den surroundings, eventually entering the water under supervision. Learning to swim represents a critical milestone. River otter pups are often encouraged into shallow water by the mother, where initial movements are tentative and uncoordinated. Repeated exposure allows the development of muscular coordination necessary for propulsion. In marine environments, the transition to diving occurs only after the pup's fur becomes less buoyant, permitting controlled descent beneath the surface. Parental care extends beyond feeding and transport. Mothers groom their offspring to maintain the insulating properties of the fur, ensuring that the air layer essential for temperature regulation remains intact. Juveniles are gradually introduced to prey items, learning through observation and direct interaction how to handle fish, crustaceans, or mollusks. As independence approaches, the young accompany the mother during foraging excursions, practicing pursuit and capture within sheltered areas. Dispersal typically occurs once sufficient swimming proficiency and hunting skill have been acquired. In some species, siblings may remain in proximity for a period following separation, forming temporary associations before establishing individual territories. The success of juvenile survival depends upon both environmental stability and the continued availability of prey. Flooding, drought, or pollution can disrupt the habitats in which early development takes place, influencing the probability of successful dispersal. Through this extended period of care and instruction, the family structure of otters supports the transfer of behavioral knowledge necessary for survival within aquatic ecosystems. In social species, such as giant river otters, family groups may include multiple generations, with older siblings participating in the care and supervision of younger pups. These cooperative interactions can improve survival rates by increasing vigilance against predators and assisting in the transport or protection of juveniles during movement between den sites. Vocal communication among group members allows coordination during periods of travel or foraging. Juvenile otters engage in repeated bouts of play that involve chasing, wrestling, and sliding along muddy or snowy banks. These behaviors contribute to the development of muscular coordination and social awareness. Practice in capturing small prey items may begin with invertebrates before progressing to fish that require more precise handling. In marine environments, sea otter mothers must often secure their pups to floating kelp while diving to forage. This temporary anchorage prevents separation in currents and reduces the risk of drift into open water. Upon returning, the mother may groom the pup extensively to restore the insulating air layer disrupted by wave action. Weaning occurs gradually, with juveniles continuing to accompany the mother during hunting excursions as they refine their foraging techniques. Observation of prey capture allows the acquisition of skills such as locating shellfish on the seabed or detecting fish movements through tactile cues. Dispersal marks the transition to independent existence. Young individuals establish new territories within suitable habitat, often selecting areas where prey abundance and shelter coincide. This period may involve exploration across multiple waterways before a stable range is secured. Through this prolonged developmental process, the transfer of behavioral knowledge from parent to offspring ensures that each generation acquires the skills necessary to navigate environments defined by water flow, seasonal change, and the distribution of prey. Part 6. Social bonds. Relationships among otters are shaped by the distribution of aquatic resources and the spatial limitations imposed by rivers, coastlines, and wetlands. Male and female interactions often begin with exploratory contact that may involve tactile communication, vocalization, and shared movement through preferred habitat. In some species, these interactions remain brief and seasonal, while in others, they form the basis of longer associations linked to territory use and reproductive timing. Territorial overlap occurs frequently in environments where prey abundance supports multiple individuals within a confined range. In river systems, the linear nature of waterways encourages the establishment of elongated territories that follow the course of the current. Adjacent individuals may traverse overlapping stretches during foraging excursions, encountering one another at resting sites or areas of concentrated prey. Such encounters are often resolved through vocal signals or scent marking, reducing the likelihood of physical confrontation. In social species, such as giant river otters, group cohesion plays a central role in daily activity. Family groups may consist of a breeding pair and their offspring from successive seasons. Movement through territory is often coordinated, with individuals maintaining visual or vocal contact while traveling between den sites and feeding grounds. These groups defend shared ranges against intruders, using collective displays or vocalizations to assert presence. Sea otters display a different form of association. Individuals may gather in floating groups known as rafts, particularly in regions where kelp forests provide anchorage at the surface. Within these aggregations, tactile contact such as holding paws may occur during periods of rest, maintaining proximity amid wave action and current. Sibling relationships contribute to the social structure of freshwater species during early development. Juveniles may remain in proximity following dispersal from the maternal territory, engaging in shared exploration of new habitat. These temporary associations can facilitate the acquisition of foraging knowledge and the identification of suitable denning sites. Communication among individuals includes a range of vocal signals that convey information regarding territory, distress, or the presence of predators. In giant river otters, whistles, growls, and screams may be used to coordinate movement or reinforce group cohesion. Freshwater species also rely upon scent marking to delineate territorial boundaries along riverbanks and frequently use trails. The extent of social interaction varies among species and habitats, influenced by prey distribution and environmental stability. In regions where resources are concentrated, cooperative behavior may enhance foraging success and defense against competitors. Where prey is dispersed, solitary hunting and limited contact may predominate. Through these patterns of interaction, otters maintain social networks that balance cooperation and competition within environments defined by shifting water levels and the availability of shelter along the margins of land and water. Male individuals may traverse the territories of multiple females, particularly in freshwater systems, where reproductive opportunity is linked to seasonal conditions. Encounters between males may involve visual display, vocalization, or physical contest when territory boundaries are disputed. Such interactions are often brief, but can influence access to preferred den sites or foraging areas. In giant river otter groups, communication occurs frequently during travel and hunting. Group members maintain cohesion through a combination of calls and body positioning, adjusting their spacing in response to environmental obstacles such as submerged vegetation or narrowing channels. Juveniles observe these interactions and gradually learn the spatial dynamics that govern coordinated movement. Sea otter rafts may form in response to environmental conditions such as wind or current, with individuals aggregating in sheltered coves. Contact between raft members can reduce the likelihood of separation and may also serve as a deterrent to potential predators by presenting a unified presence at the surface. Scent marking along riverbanks provides an additional layer of communication. Deposits placed at prominent locations may signal occupancy and reproductive status, allowing individuals to assess the presence of neighbors without direct encounter. These chemical cues can persist for extended periods, guiding movement patterns within shared habitats. Temporary alliances among juveniles may arise following dispersal, particularly in regions where prey distribution requires exploratory movement. Shared travel may enhance the probability of locating suitable habitat, while reducing vulnerability to predators during the initial stages of independence. Through these varied forms of interaction, the relationships among otters reflect a balance between cooperation within family groups and competition for access to resources, shaping the social structure of populations across aquatic environments. Part 7. Rivals. Otters exist within aquatic ecosystems that support a range of competing predators, many of which share overlapping dietary requirements or occupy adjacent positions within the food web. The presence of these rivals influences movement patterns, habitat selection, and foraging behavior, shaping the distribution of otter populations across freshwater and marine environments. In coastal habitats, sea otters encounter predation risk from large marine predators capable of approaching from below or from open water. Among these are orcas, which have been observed preying upon otters in certain regions where preferred prey becomes scarce. The presence of such predators may alter resting behavior, encouraging the formation of rafts within sheltered kelp beds where structural complexity reduces vulnerability. Freshwater species face a different array of competitors. In tropical river systems, giant river otters share habitat with large reptiles such as caimans. These armored predators occupy similar stretches of slow-moving water where fish abundance is high. Encounters may occur at feeding sites or along riverbanks used for resting. Cooperative group defense within giant river otter families may reduce the risk posed by solitary reptiles. Predatory birds also represent a potential threat, particularly to juveniles. In forested regions, large raptors such as harpy eagles may target young individuals during periods of surface activity near riverbanks. The selection of den sites beneath dense vegetation reduces exposure to aerial predators. Terrestrial carnivores may exploit shoreline environments where otters emerge from the water. In temperate regions, coyotes or wolves may intercept individuals traveling between waterways or resting on land. In tropical habitats, jaguars have been known to pursue otters within flooded forests or along narrow channels, entering the water in pursuit when opportunity permits. Competition for prey may occur even in the absence of direct predation. Fish-eating birds, crocodilians, and other semi-aquatic mammals may reduce the availability of shared food resources within confined habitats. Such competition can influence the timing of hunting activity, encouraging nocturnal or crepuscular foraging in areas of high predator density. Juveniles are particularly vulnerable during dispersal, when inexperience and reduced swimming proficiency increase the likelihood of encounter with predators. Movement through unfamiliar territory may expose young individuals to hazards associated with both aquatic and terrestrial environments. In marine systems, the absence of extensive terrestrial refuge increases reliance upon the protective complexity of kelp forests. Within these environments, visibility is reduced and movement is constrained by vegetation, conditions that may limit the effectiveness of pursuing predators. Through these interactions with rival species and competing predators, otters navigate environments where survival depends upon the balance between resource acquisition and avoidance of threat, adapting behavior to the presence of organisms that share or contest access to aquatic prey. In subtropical and temperate freshwater systems, large reptiles such as alligators and crocodiles may also pose a risk to individuals approaching the shoreline. These ambush predators occupy the margins of rivers and wetlands, where sudden attack may occur as an otter enters or exits the water. Awareness of such threats influences the selection of entry points and resting sites, favoring areas where visibility is enhanced or escape routes are available. Competition among aquatic predators may extend to species that exploit similar prey resources. Fish-eating birds such as herons or cormorants may reduce the abundance of accessible fish within shallow channels, increasing the energetic cost of foraging. In environments where prey is limited, this shared consumption can intensify territorial defense among otter populations. In marine habitats, large sharks may also represent a potential hazard, particularly in open coastal waters beyond the protective boundaries of kelp forests. The presence of drifting vegetation provides both concealment and structural complexity that may limit the approach of such predators. Group living in giant river otters allows coordinated responses to perceived threats. Vocalizations may alert group members to the presence of caimans or terrestrial carnivores along riverbanks, prompting movement toward deeper water or sheltered inlets. Adults may position themselves between juveniles and potential predators during retreat. Young individuals dispersing from natal territories encounter heightened risk during exploration of unfamiliar habitat. Limited knowledge of predator distribution or escape routes may increase vulnerability during this transitional phase. Through these interactions with rival species and competing predators, otters maintain a balance between vigilance and foraging, adjusting movement and behavior in response to the presence of organisms that share or contest access to aquatic environments. Part 8. Human history. Human interactions with otters extend across centuries, reflecting both material reliance and cultural significance within societies that developed alongside rivers, lakes, and coastal ecosystems. In many northern regions, the dense fur of otters was valued for its insulating properties, leading to sustained hunting by coastal communities. Garments constructed from otter pelts provided protection against cold and moisture in environments where exposure to wind and water posed constant risk. Trade networks developed around the exchange of such pelts, particularly in areas where otter populations were abundant. The demand for fur in distant markets contributed to the expansion of trapping activities along river systems and coastal margins. In some regions, this pressure resulted in localized population decline, altering the ecological balance of aquatic habitats where otters functioned as mid-level predators. Beyond their material value, otters have occupied a place within the mythological traditions of various cultures. In parts of East Asia, the otter has been associated with shape-shifting narratives, appearing in stories as a creature capable of adopting human form or influencing natural events. These accounts often describe the otter as both playful and enigmatic, reflecting its elusive presence along waterways. Indigenous communities of the Amazon basin have observed giant river otters for generations, incorporating their behavior into oral traditions that describe cooperative hunting and territorial defense. Such observations contributed to an understanding of the river as a shared environment inhabited by both human and non-human communities. In northern coastal cultures, sea otters were sometimes regarded as symbols of resourcefulness, their use of stones to open shellfish interpreted as a sign of intelligence or adaptability. Artistic representations in carvings and textiles occasionally depict otters engaged in foraging or swimming, emphasizing their connection to the surrounding waters. European historical records document the presence of otters along medieval waterways, where they were often viewed as competitors for fish within managed fisheries. This perception led to efforts to reduce local populations in areas where fish stocks were economically important. Across these varied cultural contexts, the relationship between humans and otters has been shaped by practical necessity, ecological observation, and symbolic interpretation. In some traditions, the otter appears as a trickster figure, while in others it represents cooperation or resilience within changing environments. These interactions reflect the broader history of coexistence between human communities and aquatic wildlife, where the presence of otters has influenced economic activity, artistic expression, and the development of environmental knowledge. In certain North Pacific coastal societies, sea otters held ceremonial importance as well as material value. The fur was not only used for warmth, but also incorporated into items of status, reflecting the relationship between coastal peoples and marine ecosystems. Knowledge of otter behavior, including the use of kelp for anchorage, was transmitted across generations through observation and storytelling. Folklore from parts of Europe describes otters as elusive guardians of waterways, creatures that moved between worlds of land and water with ease. In some narratives, they were associated with transformation or guidance, appearing in tales that linked rivers to spiritual journeys. In Japan, historical references to river otters include accounts of nocturnal gatherings along riverbanks, interpreted within local traditions as evidence of supernatural qualities. Such stories often emphasized intelligence or social cohesion, attributing human-like characteristics to their movements and vocalizations. In South American traditions, giant river otters have been portrayed as coordinated hunters whose group behavior reflects unity within the natural world. These depictions may arise from long familiarity with the vocal communication and collective movement exhibited by family groups. Industrial expansion in later centuries introduced new pressures upon otter populations. Habitat alteration through dam construction, pollution, and land conversion reduced the availability of suitable waterways. In response, conservation measures emerged in some regions to protect remaining populations and restore degraded habitats. Through these evolving interactions, the role of otters within human perception has shifted from resource and competitor to indicator of ecological health. Their presence within rivers and coastal waters increasingly reflects the condition of aquatic systems upon which both wildlife and human communities depend. Part 9. Conservation. The conservation of otters is closely tied to the condition of aquatic environments, as their survival depends upon the availability of prey, the integrity of riverbanks, and the stability of coastal ecosystems. Changes in water quality, sediment load, and vegetation cover can alter the distribution of fish and invertebrates upon which otters rely, influencing both foraging success and reproductive stability. Pollution represents a persistent threat within many freshwater systems. Chemical runoff from agricultural and industrial activity may accumulate within rivers and wetlands, reducing prey abundance or introducing toxins that affect health and development. Oil contamination in marine habitats poses a particular risk to sea otters, whose insulation depends upon the integrity of their fur. Even minor exposure to oil can disrupt the air layer trapped within the fur, leading to heat loss during immersion. Habitat fragmentation may result from dam construction or land conversion along riverbanks, altering water flow and eliminating denning sites. The loss of riparian vegetation reduces shelter for both adults and juveniles, increasing exposure to predators and environmental stress. In coastal environments, overfishing can diminish populations of shellfish and other benthic organisms, that form a significant portion of the sea otter diet. Where prey becomes scarce, individuals may be forced to expand their foraging range into areas of increased predation risk. Conservation measures implemented in some regions have focused upon habitat restoration and the regulation of hunting practices. Protected areas established along rivers and coastlines provide refuge where prey populations may recover, and breeding activity can occur with reduced disturbance. Public awareness of the ecological role played by otters has contributed to support for these initiatives. By influencing the abundance of species such as sea urchins, otters contribute to the maintenance of kelp, forests that serve as habitat for numerous marine organisms. Long-term survival depends upon the continued protection of waterways and coastal zones where otters live and reproduce. Monitoring programs may assess population trends and identify emerging threats associated with climate variability or human development. Through sustained conservation efforts, the persistence of otters within rivers, wetlands, and coastal ecosystems reflects the broader health of aquatic environments upon which diverse forms of life depend. Climate variability introduces additional challenges. Altered precipitation patterns may influence river flow, affecting the seasonal distribution of prey species and the accessibility of den sites. Extended droughts can reduce wetland extent, while intense flooding may disrupt breeding activity by inundating resting chambers. In marine systems, rising ocean temperatures and changing current patterns may influence the distribution of invertebrate prey within coastal zones. The health of kelp forests, upon which sea otters depend for both anchorage and ecological balance, may also be affected by these shifts. Conservation initiatives increasingly emphasize the restoration of riparian vegetation along riverbanks. The re-establishment of native plant communities can stabilize soil, reduce sediment runoff, and provide shelter for aquatic organisms that form the base of the otter diet. Public engagement programs have sought to reduce disturbance within critical habitats by promoting awareness of the role played by otters in maintaining ecological balance. In some regions, reintroduction efforts have restored populations to waterways from which they had previously disappeared. Monitoring of population health through field surveys and environmental assessment allows the identification of emerging threats before significant decline occurs. Such efforts may include the evaluation of prey abundance, water quality, and habitat connectivity. Through continued collaboration between conservation organizations and local communities, the presence of otters within rivers, wetlands, and coastal ecosystems remains an indicator of environmental stability, reflecting the broader condition of aquatic landscapes shaped by both natural processes and human activity. The end.